Hey, I'm Daniel Berger, and this is Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the podcast where Metro New York real estate meets great stories and a douse of humor. Forget the dry sales talk. Here we dive into the fun and unexpected moments of real estate. Join me each week as we explore Westchester, Long Island, the Bronx, and more. You'll hear about the people, the places, and the crazy situations that make this industry so interesting. Thanks to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, we're ready to share the lighter side of real estate. Whether you're a pro, a buyer, or just curious, we've got something for everyone. Ready for today's adventure? Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. I happen to be Daniel Berger. Today, I'm excited to have from across the world, actually, today, Adrienne Green. Adrienne is a seasoned entrepreneur. She's a real estate investor. She's a business mentor. Um, she's built and sold a real estate team. She's an investor with active portfolio, passive portfolio. She's leads an expert agent network, which combines investors and agents around the world together. She talks about work-life balance, which I don't even know how she could have that with all those things. She's a mother of three, and has an expertise in building businesses, efficiency, systems, and all that. And she's so efficient that she's currently traveling the world with her family, as she's having her passive investments working for her, as well as all the things that she's able to do. So you're not just business leader, you're a virtual business leader in the sense that you can do it from wherever when you wake up and you're on your phone and you're on your computer, you're able to get things done. So with that, I'd like to welcome Adrienne to the show this week. Thank you very much for coming all the way from Vietnam today.
It's my pleasure, Daniel, and I'm sure we'll have a great conversation.
So talk to me about how many years have you been licensed as a real estate agent?
So I got my real estate license in 2018. So, a little bit of time, not as long as some others, but my entry to real estate was really through investing first. And so my background, I worked in finance and then I actually taught high school math. And I kind of fell into real estate investing by, buying what my husband and I thought was our forever home. And we realized it was more than we needed and we started renting out the basement and realizing that real estate investing was the easiest money I was making. We were started saving up for down payments, buying investment properties. That's what led to me becoming a real estate agent. And it's all been transformational. It all really came from that first, basement house hack. And now our entire lives, uh, professionally are all things that have come from real estate.
I like that story because that's really from building from the ground up, working together with as a family, doing that. My
Mhm.
stories, I started about the same time. My story is I was in the solar business and the company went bankrupt. And my wife looked at me and goes, "What are you going to do when you grow up?" And that's as like a 48-year-old. And so my wife was one that said, "You need to do real estate." And so that turned into becoming an agent, then buying my own a Remax franchise, and kind of having a
Mhm.
team from that. So um, uh, yours is started younger, and also seems like the way to go. But we each get to where we get to. It's our own little path. So that's
Mhm.
great. So we've kind of both been in it around the same time, which is kind of crazy, right? It's been the last couple of years. I'm in the New York market, so um, our market's been insane. So it's really building systems. So systems, different people have different things work for different people, right? So
Mhm.
I know that we were talking the other day with family, and I said I got into real estate because I don't like spreadsheets. I'm not a spreadsheet guy, but clearly people that are more analytical, and with you with your investments, you're probably more of a spreadsheet person, right? So um,
Mhm.
trying to organize. So a lot is in my head, a lot is in the cloud, um, but I would say so. What's interesting is so building your real estate team and then selling it. So how does that work? Like, where did you get to? Who did you sell to? And was it a one-time payment? Is it an annuity? How does that
Yeah.
work? Because that's quite interesting. People talk about that a lot, but we don't hear more about that.
Right. And that is so true, Daniel. I know when I decided that I wanted to sell my real estate team, and I feel like I'm pretty well networked in the real estate agent space, it was still, a challenge to find the experts to help me in that. And it really was through a happenstance connection that I found there's one company that specializes in valuing teams and brokerages. And so they were able to provide like that unbiased third party view of the valuation. But to take it back to the beginning, because all of this really fed into selling the team. I started this team in 2020. I moved. So I became a real estate agent in 2018. Fall 2020, I moved to a new market. I moved from Northern Virginia outside of DC to Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I knew one person in Chattanooga, and that person was a real estate agent. And so I knew I'd have to be really strategic to start my business in this whole new market. And that is a pain point. I think a lot of real estate agents shudder thinking about, oh my gosh, restarting as an agent in a new market where you know no one, right? Like that's a shudder. And yet, necessity is the mother of invention. So, because I was in that kind of tight spot, if we wanted to move here, I knew I was going to make it work, but it was, unusual. And also, I have three kids, and my youngest was born March 2020. So I had three children who were less than 1 year, and then like 3 and 5 while restarting this business in this new place. And I knew I had to be strategic and I had to go big. And so a couple things I did is I focused on working with real estate investors because I was an investor first. And I knew that in order to do the number of deals I wanted to do, I was, the Chattanooga market, the average price point at that time was around 300,000. I was moving from a market with an average price point around 600,000. So it was cutting in half. I was like, I know if I want to do the number of deals I need to do, I need a virtual assistant. So those two decisions of really niching to a specific group of, real estate clients and using a virtual assistant were what allowed me originally as a solo agent to do so much business that by August 2021, so 8 months really after I started as an agent in this city, I was walking into my brokerage and saying, hey, I have more business than I can do between myself and my VA. I need to start a team. I need to bring other agents on. So those were what fed into it. And then that same kind of strategy through having this team throughout the way really helped that when I decided to sell, it wasn't my initial plan, but when I decided to sell, everything was in place. And so, Daniel, some of those things that helped that valuation was that I ran it like a business, right? I didn't name it after myself like a lot of teams. It was called the Auburndale Group, not the Adrienne Green Group. That increased its value, right? That I had everything in like I get, Daniel, this was a lot of work. So I'm like, oh yeah, I had systems and procedures. Nobody does that naturally, right? It was a lot of work. It was a lot of pain to be like, everything is systematized, right? And I had virtual assistants. And so they were doing a lot of that work on the back end. And then as a team owner, team leader, I really stepped back from production. And my job was to nurture the agents, to feed them the leads. And that increased the team's value as well, because most, rainmakers or team leaders, whatever you call them, are often doing, maybe let's say 50% of the team's production. Well, then if you're going to sell and leave the team, then it would be objectively reasonable to assume that 50% of that production is going to end because you're the one doing it. And so while you get good money during the time that you have the team, if you're doing the deals, right? Because you're not having to pay a split or anything like that, you're decreasing the value of the team when you do that. So it just so happened that all the choices I made and the way I ran the team that worked for me were also things that fed into it having a better valuation when I went to sell. Now, you asked about the specifics of selling. I'll pause before I get into that to see, do you have any other questions or thoughts about along the way before we talk about that sale?
Um, well, I think what's interesting is if you have the vision going into it that you're trying to build a team to sell, I think you would build a team differently than if you had something else. Like for me, as an example, I am the broker owner because I didn't want to have to work in a brokerage with all these strings, like, and putting in corners and boxes, right? Where they're like, this is why you do it this way, because this is why because this is how it's been done. This is what we tell you
Right.
you have to do it. This is what so I actually so mine's interesting. So I'm listening to you and thinking about it. I probably created mine more. So a brokerage, and we have, there's a team, right? So I love what you said about not naming it after yourself. I think that is, I'm not a fan of when teams are named after a specific person, because I don't think, I don't think people care. And like you said, it's less portable when you actually do it that way. And then it's also,
Right.
why am I not working with the team lead? Why, there's a person's name. I'm not even able to work with that person. So I think
Right.
what you did, I think, is brilliant. Which is kind of what I did by just having, right, just my Remax Prestige properties. That's it. And then there are clearly, as I brought in other agents, we're all kind of working together. So from that standpoint,
Right.
um, I'm probably much less systematized, but we'll get into that after. So I'm very interested to hear about the next step.
Right. Well, I will also say, Daniel, that part of why I didn't name it like the Adrienne Green team is because I know, like, for myself, I'd have a hard time going and, working every day for the John Doe team, right? I'd be like that's just, I'm a little too independent for that. And so I wanted to build my team the way that other people like me would be comfortable, right? So but yes, so I did all those things. And so in August 2023, I actually was at a big real estate conference. It was all like rah rah, like here are great strategies. And I was like, yeah, these are great strategies. And yet I didn't walk away being like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to implement them, right? I was kind of like, you know what, I've already implemented a lot of great stuff with the team. And I kind of felt like I think there were two parts of this. One was that I kind of felt like I was at the limit of, I had given everything to the team, that I had given everything. I had made it as great as I could. And I felt like it was time for someone else who had a different set of skills, who had different, a different spice to themselves to put in and make it now that next level up, right? That I had taken it where I could. And then the other aspect of it, like I said, I started as an investor. And so it was also that my investments were doing well. And this is why I think, every real estate agent would be well served to invest in real estate, because when I started looking at like my dollars per hour of running that team versus my dollars per hour of my real estate investing, I had gotten to that point where that real estate investing was more lucrative. And so that's where it was like, well, this makes sense for this now to be more of my top focus and for me to move on from the team. So I think it was this combination of things that made that the right decision for me. And then what made it successful is, once I made that decision, even though selling a team is rare, right? Not many people do it. I was like, I know I can do it and I'm not going to doubt this, right? That mental decision of this is going to be 100% what's going to succeed. And I'm not going to doubt or be like, maybe or whatever. That was an important mental shift. And because then it made it so that all my actions were like, this is an inevitability. And how can I do it? How can I, not can I do it, but how can I do it? And how can I do it the best way possible? And but it's a delicate situation, right? You don't necessarily want certain people to know that you're thinking of selling. And it's just, there's a lot of nuances to that. So, I went to we'd have a team leader who ran my office, and she could confidentially speak to the other teams in the office. That was one of the first strategies, and see, did a different team want to grow by acquisition by buying my team, right? That was something that I did first. I didn't end up going with that strategy, but that was a strategy that I looked into that often succeeds. Another aspect to it that, I alluded to before that was really great is, I had a lot of real estate agent friends through masterminds and things that weren't in my local market, that were in other places in the country. And so these were people that I could confidentially reach out to and say, hey, I'm thinking, I'm going to sell my team. Who do you know who sold a team? Who do you know who helps with these valuations? Who do you know that can help me with this, that has some experience that I can speak with? And it was through one of those connections that I got connected, like I said, to this company that focuses on valuing teams and brokerages. So I was able to have a call with them. They have a very reasonable fee where I answered their questionnaire. I gave them a bunch of financials. They did market research, and they came back with, an independent third party valuation of the team. Now, I know people wonder, well, what are the valuations? What do that looks like? So, valuation of a team like a business is often a multiple of your net income, right? Or there's other ways that you view it, but you can say net income. And they discount it by any income that isn't going to continue. So by replacing the team owner is the biggest way. So the more the team owner is involved, the more they're going to discount your current net income by the cost of replacing you. That's one thing to keep in mind. And they actually gave me three different valuations that were based off of like down payment in terms. So generally with a real estate team, there aren't hard assets like an office, right? Like we just rented a room in my brokerage, right? I didn't have like physical real estate or things that banks typically like to see to give business loans. The
Right.
value is really in the book of business, in the procedures, in all those systems and everything like that. So we did seller financing, and I think that's the way a lot of teams are sold, as far as I know. But I did seller financing, and so the buyers, and I'll get into them, but they brought a down payment, and the buyers and I worked together. I didn't really care. I was like, here's the three offers, here's the three valuations from this company, this firm, that one of them was the lowest multiple was going to be, the highest down payment. I think it was like 20% in the shortest payback period for the loan, which I think was 2 years. Then the middle one was, you know what, that might have been 25%. 25% down, 2 year payback period was going to be like a 2.5 times multiple, I think. And then the middle one of a 20% down payment and a 3 year payback period was going to be a 3x multiple. And then if you had like a 10% down payment and a 4 year payback period, it was going to be a 4x multiple, right? It was that kind of thing was the range that we were in. And so they decided to go with the middle plan, and that's what we did. And so it's like they had the down payment, and then we actually did the payback as a percentage of the business that they do, the gross business that they do. So just the commissions that they get. That way, if they have a hard month, or how cyclical real estate can be, they're not locked into paying me a fixed amount of dollars every month, regardless. It's just they give me a certain percentage of the volume that they get that month. Um, and the buyers, I think the last part of it is the buyers ended up actually being two agents who were on the team. And what ended up happening is one of the newer agents on the team, who was actually a past client. She's a past client. She was an
Right.
investor, very experienced in life, very high achieving in other things. She was saying how much she really had a dream of having her own team, and how that was really something that she wanted to work for. And she knew it was going to happen sooner rather than later. And so she was having a hard time, honestly and ethically, like maybe working with team leads, because she felt like she wasn't going to be on the team that long. But I was like, this is because you're so ambitious, you want your own team. And so I realized that she would potentially be someone who'd be interested in buying the team instead of going and starting her own. And a lot of teams do sell to people who are currently on the team. So I then had a confidential conversation with her to say that I was thinking about selling the team. Would she be interested in that? And the thing is, she didn't have a ton of years of experience as an agent in real estate. So we ended up doing is I then reached out to another agent on the team. It was, a bit of a roll of the dice, right? Because this could have all blown up. But I reached out
Right.
to the agent on the team who was the most experienced, knowing that those two worked together well. And they decided to partner, and the two of them together ended up buying the team.
That's interesting that they would buy a team as opposed to just starting their own, which would have cost them, it wouldn't have cost them up, down deposit or whatever, but and they also had their production. So that's I guess I'm going to say that that's a testament to the systems that you put in place, you that clearly the value of what you had in place made sense to them. Otherwise, they would have just done it themselves for less money. So they saw
Yeah.
value in the name, your brand, the name, and what the name meant in the market, and then also clearly that the systems that you had in place were working. So good job with that. So that's pretty
Thank you.
incredible to start a team that quickly and then sell it that quickly. But you know, it's because you're basically you're trying to make money, right? You're an investor. You invest in multiple different things, and so you saw that you came, and also you said that you wanted someone to take it to the next level. So I applaud you for you're more of a business builder. You build it so and then and get your just due, and then move on to the next thing. So especially when if you're saying that your investment was more productive than being the broker or the team leader, then another really smart decision, not staying in something that's a time suck, but getting out, getting a good dividend, and then taking that profit and moving on to other things like travel. So
Yes, yes. All of it, I think we do gloss over that building the team is definitely a labor of love. And so there's great parts, and yet it's still labor, right? It's still work. And so there was a lot that went into it. But yeah, it is nice when it all works out and you're able to see, like you said, that I built something that has value in and of itself. That, the time I took to make these systems, procedures, to figure out how things work, to get that CRM of all those clients, those past clients and everything, that was something that someone else could take and run with and find value in, was great.
for me, I guess my setting up was I'm older. My kid, I'm an empty nester with two dogs, so I spend more times with the dogs and my wife. But it's kind of like, if I sold, what would I do next, right? So and you're also wanting to travel, and so you were leaving, so that kind of made sense, right? If I knew I was leaving, then it would certainly make sense to do that. But for me, I have to do something. So but it's a passion, right, and a joy for me to be a mentor and team leader. What's interesting is, a lot of people like yourself are coaches, and coaching costs money. So um, part of when you're a team lead, you're coaching and mentoring, and that's comes with it. So
Hmm.
I'm building like a small little team of people that we want to have around together, that we can work and coach. So it is a little different. But you would be shocked if you saw my systems, because they're in my head or in the cloud. So I do many of the things that you discussed, but less formal, I think, is the thing. And I guess my issue would be, um my our team is probably, I do a lot of business. So last year, if we did like 140 transactions, I did like 65 of them myself. If the team did 75, we did $75 million last year, I did 42 of it.
Wow.
So
Yep.
but again, I built it so that I can, make the rules. So, like, as we know, the new buyer agreements that have
Hmm.
come out. I despise the 7-page buyer agreement that was given to us by NAR and our association. I'm like, how am I supposed to like get somebody to sign a 7-page? I can't even have a buyer sign this without like them looking at a lawyer. I would feel guilty about doing that because it's all legalese. And so
Right.
luckily for me, my wife's an attorney. We sat down, we went over what the rules were, and we came up with a 1-page document, a 1-page, very simple, non-exclusive. And so I love that I can say, here's the 7-page document that most agents are going to make you sign. But I developed this 1 page, and it's so I'm able to right now get through the clutter and the nervousness of someone signing something. And so that's an example of how I run my business, right? With everything. It's
Hmm.
like not what's been done before, it's what's legal, with what's ethical. My agents are able to, I really treat them as independent contract. I have my brokerage has no employees. Everyone's an
Oh,
independent
wow.
contractor. Um, I've had a virtual assistant. Actually, what's interesting is, my family went on a vacation to Thailand.
Hmm.
Um, my virtual assistant's actually from the Philippines, but happened to be in Thailand at the time. So we met at the bar at the hotel. So I did that for a little bit of time, and then I kind of stopped doing it because I do use RML. I do automate alerts and things like that, but ultimately, you'll die. I did 65 deals last year. I do all the memos. I do them myself. I do payroll for everybody. Um, it's I don't mind doing it. I also know what's going on. So what's interesting is, so scaling, right? A lot of what you do is leveraging leveraging virtual assistants, leveraging what you have, and scaling. Scaling's
Hmm.
not bad, but scaling to scale, because I've seen some people that just want to scale. That's dangerous, because ultimately, it's not about how much, my view is it's not about how much money you make, it's how much money you keep, right?
Right.
So all
Mhm.
those things cost money. So it's like, do I get a whole payroll system? I'm like, okay, so if I did 65 deals and there's another 70 deals, I do it. It's not the big, right? The check gets cashed, it's in my account. I pay people the same day as deals. It's not that hard. We use dot loop and so it's kind of like you have to do what you kind of like. But the biggest thing
Mhm.
is scaling to scale, I think, is people think they need to be bigger. And sometimes going from 10 to 100 causes more problems
Right.
and not necessarily more profit, right? So,
Mhm.
um, so I
Right.
think what I really like what you've done is as you started as an investor, then you're like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And I actually have multiple clients who have wanted to be real estate agents. So the ones that become real estate agents, really, you can't be part-time real estate agent. I mean, there are people that do it,
Right.
but like, if like 80% of realtors do two or less deals a year, and 50% do, I mean, that was the number from last year, something like that. So that's why we get that, right? There's people that, oh, I want to save a little bit of money. I have an investor who came to me and said that. He goes, I want to get I'm like, why do you want to get a real estate license? He's like, well, I have like 20 properties I'm going to be selling and I have 1031 exchanges. And I said to him last year, this is why I love being a broker. I was like, so you got to take the test. You got to get licensed in Connecticut. You're going to have to get licensed in New York. That's where he has his properties. It's going to cost this amount. I go, why not just work with me? I go, you work with me. Any of your listings, I'll put on the listing. He's like, I do all the showings. I'm like, okay, so you'll do every single showing. Not a problem. Because
Mhm.
he wants to actively manage it. And I go, you know what? You pay me what you feel is appropriate. You pay me what's
Mhm.
appropriate. I don't tell him what he has to pay me. Last year I think my revenue from him was 20,000. This year, we just started the year. We're about to, I've had one transaction. We're about to have another one for like one of them is a two and a half. We're selling in within this month a $2.5 million condo, right? So I'm like, you tell me what it is. And it's still decent, right? It's not if you were the listing agent, but so it's being flexible, and I think that's what I like because you know what? In the end of the day, revenue is revenue, and having him getting his own license and doing it elsewhere is not revenue for me. And and it was funny because I was at his house the other day. We were after a closing, and he basically like I never met his wife, and his wife and his kids were there, and he's introduced, and she's like, "Oh, you're Daniel Berger." I thought I wasn't sure if my wife was having an affair with you because you're getting a text at all now hours and whatever. And he goes, he goes, Danny's worth it. So it's kind of like you have to add value, right? And that's an investor
Mhm.
that's doing a lot of hands-on. So I made it in a way that he doesn't now want to even go get his license because we're flexible. And so I think that's the
Mhm.
key. And it's clearly, you as building things, selling things, and I guess that's me being an entrepreneur, right? Is seeing where I can add value and not trying to be a pig about it.
Right. Right. And I think it depends on the markets, but some real estate agents can certainly have a scarcity mindset and be feel like they need to go after every penny that they could, versus having more of a, I think, a abundance mindset like you demonstrated there.
you know, Yesterday, I had a new client that came in and they had to buy something with their mother, and they wanted to go see something that was like final and best. It was, that was going to be final and best actually today. And I'm like, you don't even have a pre-approval. And it's a co-op, and co-ops in our market have much more rigid financial. And I'm like, you're jumping and they've been working with someone for a month. And then their buyer agreement expired. We were going to start working together. It was going to be our first. And I'm like, why are we seeing something that is final and best an hour after we're scheduled to see it later today? And you haven't even done. And so I was trying to bring them back to why we need to do things this way. And they just wanted to see a property. And so I used to not do this as much, but you'll be proud of me because I valued my time and I valued that, I do a fair amount of business, and I'm explaining to them the process. And while I could have relented and caved in and showed them the property, I was like morally opposed to that. I'm trying to set them up to, I don't even know if they can afford it. And we're not just going to see places, just I go, and I
Right.
gave them like 4 day notice of these are the things, like go get a pre-approval. I sent them to a lender. These are the documents. This is what we need to do. The person owns a bakery, doesn't make that much money, and is really leveraging his mother. Well, many co-ops don't let two people buy it that aren't going to be living there. So there was a
Mhm.
lot of pre-work that needed to be done. And this is not my strength. My strength isn't saying no to people, but I was kind of more rigid because that was kind of, and so I felt bad about it. But then when I saw that they're like, we went with another agent, like he already had signed the buyer agreement, my non-exclusive buyer agreement, and all the different disclosures. And I kind of was like, I think I did a good job there because I was trying to set the expectations, and they kind of want what they want, which is fine. They're allowed to do that. But, you know, it's kind of the back and forth. Oh, I could have sold it. I'm sure I could have, but it probably would have taken a lot of time. And I was trying to guide them down the process. Um, so that's, how do you work with people when you were running the team where you see that your agents are going down a rabbit hole that you're trying to protect them or guide them
Right.
for greater productivity? What were some of the strategies that you would have done in that case?
That is a really good question because and I think higher level, if you think of like the DISC personality assessment that we use a lot in real estate, right? A lot of real estate agents are these high eyes, and high eyes, extroverted, you could make friends with a rock, great qualities of that. And yet, one of the challenges of a high I is that they can be people pleasers. High I's have a hard time saying no. And I am not a high I. I'm actually more of like a D and C. And as a high D, I'm fine with saying no. But I had to work with these agents who are high I's. And so what we did a lot with that is when there are common situations, and those are ones where people want to see a property that they're not pre-approved for yet. That's where our script practice came into play. So in our regular meetings or in our extra trainings, we would have these situations and we would have script practice that said, hey, I cannot do that because it's not what would serve you best, and my job is to serve you best. So like in that specific situation, hey, if you do not, this is going to be, like you said, highest and best multiple offer situation, and if you don't have a pre-approval yet, there's no way you could get it. So if I was to take you there and show you that property and you did fall in love with it, imagine how heartbreaking it would be when someone else gets it because you can't get an offer in time because you can't have the pre-approval and they need a pre-approval with that offer. I could write up an offer, but it's meaningless without that pre-approval, and you haven't reached out to the lender yet. So like I would be just setting you up with heartbreak. It'd be like taking you to like on a date with a married man. Like it's just not the right thing to do. So that's why I have to say, let's go, let's get that pre-approval because there's going to be something else. And the timing always works out that the right place is available at the right time for you.
I
Something like
think
that.
there's a
Because
I think
people,
there's a joke. I think there's a joke in bringing someone on a date with a married man, but I'm gonna let it go for today. But I know a good comeback for that. Um, yeah, so that is you know, yeah, that is important. It was funny that you just said so. I told you you're gonna laugh at me when you're like, how does he even do this with the business? And you said scripts, and I have no scripts. I have no scripts. I don't. It's Well, I do have a script. It's in my head, right? Nothing that's written down. I've never rehearsed. It just my view is that and it's not going to work for everyone, but like it has to be inside. Like you have to feel it. It has to be genuine. It has to be
right,
the words. And certainly I don't like the saying scripts, but knowing you, while hey, it's different when you're mentoring, right? Where you're just giving people the guidelines of what the words are, so because not everyone understands it and wants to say it. So ultimately, I am sure that if you're probably giving me a script right now and I don't even know because that's how talented you are, right? So that if you've internalized your script where it's becoming your words, then it's not really a script. It's really just what you would say. And so while I've never formally written anything, I probably say it similar ways.
Hmm.
And what I do is using knowing that there's all different types of personalities. And so I have no script. It's I'm old, so I've been selling and being a director of sales since I'm really, really young. And so I've internalized how based off of what comes up, how to respond. And everyone's different, right? There are spreadsheet people, there are feeling people, there are, drivers. And so um, I clearly must do it because you can't get to that many sales with not, satisfy. Not everyone's the same. So you have to kind of satisfy a lot of different people. And I get a lot of repeat business. So I'm less like formalized written down, but obviously it's the same, right? Obviously the words
Hmm.
that are coming out of their mouth are answer the people's questions and try to drive people down the path. And what you're also talking about is also training new people. And so as a broker, I have new people that are coming in, and it's really difficult. And it's really difficult because in this business, you're an independent contractor. You don't get paid until you're at the closing table. Many, many things
Hmm.
can happen on the way. Um, I'm lucky that as an empty nester and a seasoned person and a wife who's a partner in a law firm, like I certain people I don't come up with saying I need this sale. Like and that
Right.
desperation that we probably see a lot. I see it a lot on social media where,
Hmm.
it's not the right business for some people because it's not a steady paycheck, right? It can be a
Right.
large paycheck, but it's not steady. And people in our industry um might not plan so much, and when the business is really good they might not saving enough, right? Savings very, very important. um
Hmm.
and as an investor you know that too. You're like, maybe it's different when you're renting out the basement of a house that you live in, but when you start buying a property and you're around the world, things can break. Hot water heaters can break, air conditioning system go down, there can be floods, and you need
Hmm.
to have contingencies, insurance, and other things to protect your assets so that when those things happen, you're not like, oh my God, I don't have the money for the hot water heater.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. It, things happen for sure, and you got to have the systems in place. So, like, I have short-term rentals and long-term rentals, and so I have a virtual assistant, and his job is 8 to 5 Eastern time, where the times when our properties are on. He's answering the phone, he's handling the turnovers and the cleaners and all the various things that can pop up. Because yeah, the cold snap that we had in January, we had a pipe burst. Thankfully, it was like an exterior pipe, and so there wasn't flooding in the house, but still I had to get the handyman out, fix that, all of that. So yeah, things do pop up, and so you've got to have the coverage and the ability to handle it. Yep. And for me, that's having the leverage of virtual assistants and technology and systems so that it doesn't become an emergency that takes me out of where I am.
Oh, see, by having a conversation, me now understanding Adrienne Green a little bit more. Well, to me, that's a case of having an assistant, right? Whether it's virtual or not, it's irrelevant.
Hmm.
But that for you to manage your properties, to me, is makes all the sense in the world, right? The phone call comes into this person. There's a list of contractors in the cities. If this breaks, they don't probably even have to talk to you. It's automatic. You call the plumber, you fix the problem,
Yep.
right? So that's
Hmm.
totally different than for me of lead management, doing my memos, which many people use that. I feel that, like, from your perspective as an investor, it is, that definitely is worthwhile. And it's fine because what your tenants can call a person and get them, like you said, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. That's awesome. And that totally frees you up to do other things. So
Hmm.
I think that's one of the best cases I've ever heard of for a virtual assistant. um we say virtual assistant, but it's an employee, but not an employee. It's a 1099 contract person who's able to answer the phone and troubleshoot issues
Hmm.
that arise right away. So I think that is the best use of a virtual assistant in the real estate world that I've heard. So congratulations
Good.
on that. So
Thank you.
um, so what else, now that you're on the other side of the world and you're with your family and managing your portfolio, what are the next things that you're thinking of? Like, what what do you see is in your bag of tricks for the way that you're going to pivot?
Well, my husband and I have a virtual staffing business where we help uh, businesses utilize virtual assistants as executive assistants, like, I was saying I did with my own portfolio. So we are continuing to grow and evolve that. It's a fun, you know, again, labor of love. The love and the fun and also the work of building a new business. So we do that, and then I work with our virtual assistants and manage our properties, and then I also work with real estate investors, and I help real estate investors where they kind of get to, hey, I've done this as a hobby. I have a few doors, but now if I want to scale my portfolio, I don't have the systems or the technology or the team in place, and I can't scale my portfolio because if I did, I'd scale my work. So I help them get systems and technology and tools in place so that they can scale their portfolio without working 24/7. So I have some online courses and speaking and coaching around that to help investors, because my real estate investment portfolio is a important reason that I can live the life I do now. And so helping others do the same so that they can have freedom to live whatever their dream lives are is really something that I enjoy.
Well, that's great. So I know another part of your business is that you try to connect investors with real estate agents. So do I
Yes.
qualify? Do I qualify that you think I have a skill set that if somebody wanted to work in my market that I qualify for that? You think I'd make the cut?
Yes, I have. I already have you on the list because I have your
So
information from us having this call.
well, so if you need me after to talk to you about it, obviously, as I grow my business, I take referrals all over the place. I've done a lot of referrals. Clearly, I'm willing to work with people. Between myself and my team that I obviously, I'm very involved in. Um, and so I'm licensed in Connecticut. We also do, New York, more north of the city. But
Mhm.
obviously, if you have investors, I work with investors all the time. So, and referrals are always accepted. Which is interesting that a lot of agents don't really understand that I can refer people anywhere in the world, and
Right.
have. And so
Hmm.
it's always nice when transaction happens in a part of the world or country or world that you have no information of, except that you connected people, they transacted
Right.
business, and then a thank you referral check comes of substantial. And I love paying referral checks too. I send them. I'm pretty good. I send them out. Part of me doing payroll is that when the thing closes, the money's sent immediately. So I'm really
Hmm.
good with that. And referral, that's an interesting part of our business, is really connecting people and trying
Hmm.
to help other agents around the country. So that's been something else that you have to be focused on, because otherwise, you're selling someone's house and they're moving and you're not involved in where are they moving to and buying. It's lost revenue. And ultimately, a lot of the sellers would be happy that you found someone for them. They don't have to do the work, and
Right.
that you form a relationship with those people. So if they have any questions, you're able to get involved and to assist in the process. So that's where I feel that it's, besides that you get paid for it, there's value in it as well.
Hmm.
So
Right.
um,
Yeah. It's hugely helpful. Buying and selling real estate is often people's biggest transaction of their lives. And if they're going into a new market, they know no one there. They're just going to choose someone randomly from Zillow or, the park bench or the shopping cart in the grocery store. And that's no way to choose the person who's going to advise you on the biggest decision of your life.
That's true. Well, I want to thank you, Adrian, for coming on the show. You your personality, you have a great bubbly personality, even though you said you're more of the driver, or not necessarily the say no person. So I'm glad you didn't say no to me. That was really good. You've In a short period of time, you've really taken it to the next level. You're obviously tops of the tops, and and your insight and all that, I think, is something that I don't even need to wish you luck, because it's not luck, it's skill, and your skill is going to take you along. But certainly, I wish you good times and everything that you do. If you want to say what the email is, or something, where your social media links, so people can follow you if
Sure.
they'd like to.
I'd love that. So on Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube, you can find me at A Real Green. That's AREAL, just like real estate. Green like the color. Any of those places. And if you are a real estate agent or broker, someone like that on the call, and you have a group of agents where you'd like me to come in and speak about working with investors, since I am so experienced on the investor front and did that myself, I'd love to come in and do a workshop or a presentation for your group of agents on how they can work well with real estate investors. So that's my free give for anyone. Just reach out on any of those platforms and we can coordinate that.
Excellent. I've already reached out to you on LinkedIn. I'll be doing Instagram in a little bit, and then obviously anytime for referrals, I'm here and I'll answer the phone. My virtual assistant won't answer the phone. I'll answer the phone. So I don't know if that might be a negative with you. So you have to decide. But um uh, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm sure everyone who listens will appreciate it as well. Uh, and thank you again, and thank you everyone for listening to this week's episode of The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Until next time, thanks for signing on.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for joining me on The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, do yourself a favor and subscribe to the podcast. A big shout out to our sponsor, RE/MAX Prestige Properties, for making this all possible. Remember to leave a review if you enjoyed the show. It helps more people find us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep exploring the adventures in your neighborhood. I'm Daniel Berger, your New York realtor, and I'll see you in the next episode.